Loading up Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella bad. After her there ain't no coming back. Wanna take a run at that. I think she's feeling me, turn it up a few degrees. My imagination of her body gets the best of me. Oh gosh, she's such a tease, bitten lips, bruised knees. I'm addicted to her, need her touching me, cause she got a bad little waist. And we tearing down this place, off the liquor that we chase. Casamigos to the face, baby I don't need no space. Coming closer for a taste, and I'll show you how I make everything just fade away. Cause she's like sex, drugs, cocaine, body so insane. Jealous of the clothing that she wears up on that tight frame. All game, no shame, baby came here to play. I feel like an addict cause she's sex, drugs, cocaine.
What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of the ElCamino build. We continue. We keep rolling, baby. We keep going. So what's up next is last episode you saw us, obviously. You just saw a recap. We did that whole bit of the firewall where the pedals and the steering column, everything else hooks onto. Now I'm looking at the overall picture of the whole front end of this firewall deal. And I'm going to have to seal it off because there's a lot of spaces, a lot of gaps where things could potentially come through. So that's what we're looking at right now, is kind of framing it out to be able to put some sheet metal in there and block everything off. A lot of things are going to be kind of tucked up in places that you won't see anyway, but just because you see them, don't see them, doesn't mean they're not there. They're not like going to be pouring smoke through your cab. So here I'm cutting little pieces, checking everything out, making it kind of fit. As you can see, I have a frame set up there in the front that I sort of built out of angle iron, square tubing. It's all squared off nice and good. So I'm going to connect that to the roll cage, making a frame on the inner side itself. If you could tell by the video clip right there, it's on the inside of the firewall. It's on like near the kick panel kind of deal. So basically what I'm doing is I'm creating like a big bucket where my feet are gonna go, sort of thing. I gotta make sure that nothing fire related or chemicals or fuels or any kind of debris or any kind of stuff can get through the firewall. So I'm kind of just like making sure the inside is sealed first, because I still have, as you can see, everything's cut open. I can still do a lot of work on the outside. So I got to make sure everything's nice and clean, because you're going to weld to it. You got to make sure your metal's good and clean. If not, you're just going to be popping sparks everywhere and making a big mess. So grinder down, get it prepped, get it clean. I've got so many hours on the grinder on this build, I couldn't even tell you if there was like some sort of step counter that counted rotation on the grinder. I'm sure you'd be mind blown. There I'm cutting out actually old pieces that I put in before. I figured that at first the floor would come down kind of like a car does, with that little bit of an angle, so it's like sort of not 90 degrees straight up and down, but somewhere you can rest your feet on. That didn't work out, because what happened was, this is an ElCamino. It's like a pickup truck. It's sort of a single cab. There's only so far that you can push your front seat back. So when I had that on an angle like that, my idea was that you put your feet on it, but even at the passenger point, when you put the seat in, mocked it up where it was going to go, and put your feet there on that angle, it puts you in a really weird position where you felt like your knees were really up in your face, and I really don't want that. This thing's got to be super comfortable. So I just matched it like the driver's side. The driver's side was actually set up the same way to be on that weird angle, but now they're just kind of straight up and down. I was thinking that if I'm going to put that on an angle for a footrest or something like that, I might as well just build a metal footrest out of something and use some dimple dies or some cool technique that makes it look really awesome. Maybe put some bead rolls in it or something like that. It's all sheet metal at that point, so things like that you can really have fun with and make them aesthetically pleasing if you want to. Maybe I'll even powder coat it. It's a foot panel, so it's going to see a lot of abuse and a lot of scratching and stuff. But maybe powder coat would hold it out, because that's something that we're going pretty strong on around here. We got that powder coat all set up in the shop. Steve and I have been really working on getting something cool going with that. So you're probably going to see a little bit of that in the future, but I think it's going to become its own thing, and it's not going to be on my channel per se, but Steve and I are probably going to start a Speed Demon design channel. There's already one there that I throw up my artwork. You can check it out. I'll try to remember to put a link in it. But I think the powder coat stuff's going to end up more on there, and this channel is going to be more just my personal channel, my builds, the stuff that I do, the stuff that hopefully you guys want to see. Anyway, moving on. Here, I used a bunch of cardboard templates to kind of mock up exactly what I needed to fit, where I needed to fit. The thing is, with cardboard, it's super easy to work with because it'll hold a shape and it won't flop around too much, not like a piece of paper, you know what I mean? Like it's got a little bit of rigidity. So I take that and then I mark out my design, and then I keep on putting that cardboard template back on and off until I have it all figured out and dialed in really good. The thing to keep in mind though, if you use that technique, is that cardboard kind of bends and you can sort of push it and mold it into where you want it to go. That doesn't necessarily mean that your piece of sheet metal is going to do the same thing. Given that this is body panels kind of deal, the sheet metal is thin enough to bend. You can bend it around corners a little bit and you can use a hammer on it, but it's not like the cardboard where it's just going to fit nicely to where it's going to be. So keep that in mind with the cardboard. When it fits on your spot where it's got to be, try to make it not too like bendy, or you don't have to push it too hard to get it in there. You want it to sit just right on its own, all your little spots and angles and bends, and then hopefully at that point you're going to be okay. So that's what I did for most of the front of this. Here we're working on just sealing up the top half, which is pretty interesting because it's going from the frame that I made to the firewall to the cowl on top of the dash underneath the windshield kind of thing. But the other issue with that was there's all kinds of air holes and stuff importing in that from factory, and I cut the firewall up to that point. Now those vents and everything become completely useless at this point, and they will be just kind of there. And the only problem is I've got to figure out now, because it's sort of interfering with my whole firewall idea. Now that that's sealed there, those little vents on the top, you can't even see them in this video, so we'll get to that. I'll show you in a later point. I'm sure I'm gonna have to patch it all up, and you guys are gonna have to see it anyway. So when we get to that point, we'll talk about that. But the thing is, it's not part of the firewall, it's actually over the firewall, but there's absolutely nothing stopping rain and stuff from falling in off the windshield into that port, into the hole that ends up right in the cab. Or if God forbid it does actually, something blows up in the engine compartment, there's fluids that leak out, they could potentially, oh, excuse me, I'm really bad at this narrator stuff, man. Stuff could potentially fall inside the cab, and that's not cool. Light me on fire, my passengers, whoever's driving at the time, we don't want that. So now I'm working on to sealing off the bottom of it. Here I'm cleaning up the door sills underneath. The thing is, this car, most drift cars and race cars now today, and everything that I've worked on pretty much previously, has been a unibody chassis. So there's like really no frame and it's all one piece, right? So I ended up turning this ElCamino into that. I talked about it on previous videos, but now the body has been dropped a couple inches because I pulled out the motor mount, body mounts and everything else. It's all mounted solid now. But the other thing is that it's all with the cage, it's all molded, it's all kind of in one. So there is no like separating the body from the chassis now. The problem with that is it leaves me all kinds of gaps because that frame never sat perfectly on the body. From factory, they were never meant to touch. There's always these big rubber body mounts in between, right? So I lifted it about 1.5 inches, kept it off the body. Here you can see the spots where I blasted them out. There's holes in the frame, and that's where the mount would sit, and it would catch the side. And anyways, now my body mount is a couple points mounted onto the roll cage where it sits on the pillars and the B pillars, and then it's going to mount to the A pillars eventually. It mounts all the way down to the floor. But the point is, this is now a unibody car. It's not coming apart anymore. The other problem with that, not having my floors, as you can see here, where I'm still building the frame for the floor, but it also provides like a lot of gaps between the body and the frame, which is kind of a problem because, again, you want it sealed, like even from the sides. This is going to be a drift car potentially. I'm going to track it a whole bunch first before I actually drift it, but it's going to be ending up being a drift car. If you've ever been in a drift car, these things throw smoke from the tires like nobody's business. So it's very important to have that cab sealed up because you don't want to be driving around and all of a sudden you're getting all smoked up inside your cab and you can't see, you can't breathe, and that's not fun. So again, here I'm applying my cardboard technique, cutting everything out, making it kind of fit together nicely, kind of cool. And the idea is to get it as close as possible so that when you weld it up, it takes minimal welding. You can do a nice clean job. You don't have to do 100 passes over it. And then back to you got to have that sealed off. So these little plates I'm making just so I can get around corners, get around bends and anything of the sort. Even if I have to cut down and make little tiny pieces, one little tiny piece at a time, that's what I'm gonna do because that's what's gotta be done. So we just keep moving on. That's the important thing with a project like this, is even when you get into some sort of spot where you're stuck, you don't know what you're gonna do next, you just gotta take a deep breath, step back, take a break, and then slowly work at it, one piece at a time. Focus on one thing at a time. If you're stuck on one thing and you can't figure it out and you're getting frustrated, well, then just try to move on to the next little thing and get that done. As long as you keep getting stuff done, you keep moving forward, you're going to progress, you're going to be all right. So that's where we're at now, making all kinds of tabs. I'm starting to seal off the whole chassis, like I said. So here, making a little tab that's going to mount, it's going to weld the body to the chassis and also to that block for the roll cage, that's probably one of the most solid pieces on this entire build so far. So we're going to keep working it around like that, see what we can do, try to get it all nice and sealed up. And thanks for sticking around for this video, guys. We got way more coming, because it's like I've worked on this thing all summer. I have all kinds of videos to edit, and I've been working through them slowly when I have time. The upload schedule's gone down maybe a little bit, but I appreciate you dudes for sticking around. Thank you so much. I love you guys. Peace out. Enjoy the ride. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. There's a lot more to come, and it's going to get real cool when this thing's fired up and ready to rock and roll. So you're going to want to see that.
If you can't